give you indulgence to stand on all existing protocols. I will speak from my area of strength, which is around banking and finance, and of course, some aspect of marketing. I have a very clear agenda or objective as stated by my managing director when I was coming here. It says that I'll be evaluated by how much donation the bank has to give next year. We've been very active givers, and it says if we are successful in reducing the incidence of giving and supporting the Lagos Security Trust Fund, next year our donation should be lower. So I'm hoping that I will achieve that at the end of all of this. But I think in starting, it's important to recognize that clearly Nigeria, as many other countries, is going through its own financial difficulties and stress. The oil price drop is something we've all discussed and will continue to discuss, because each time it exposes us to how much lack of structure exists within our macroeconomic standards. Clearly, what you find is that there's an imbalance between savings and investments, and we always have to look externally for capital flows to come into our market to support us in developing our market. And it's critical for those capital flows to come in that they believe that the capital investment that they bring into our market is safe. So for us as finance people and for business people, it's critical that security and safety exist within the markets and environments that we operate. The economists will tell you that there are three critical things that any economy requires for it to grow. And I'll add a fourth, just because we work and live in an emerging market. The first is the right to property, meaning that as entrepreneurs, we can engage in enterprises, we can invest our capital, we can own assets, and be able to transfer those assets and transfer title from one person. And that drives innovation and creativity. Now, if there's no guarantee that after all the hard work, all the investment that I've made, that I can truly own the asset and not be afraid that someone who didn't participate in any of this venture can come and forcefully take this away from me, then the ability to invest or to attract capital flows become greatly impaired. The other is an efficient market where buyers and sellers can interact, and security is needed, not just fiscal security, but even today, seeing how we transact electronically becomes important, that security is guaranteed both on the fiscal side as well as electronically. And of course, monetary exchange is the other. And today, being a hugely cash-based economy, it means that we are still transacting in cash. We're holding money for precautionary reasons, and we carry a lot of cash. And that cash is in danger if there's no security. It means that you can't speak in the car, because many times I want to communicate to my wife in the car, and we have a driver there. And we have to give all sorts of signals, and so you can't speak freely because we're transacting in cash, and you go home with cash, and you're afraid what happens. So for us to thrive economically, we need security to exist within our market. I think there are two critical issues that will, in some sense, guarantee people giving and contributing towards the Security Trust Fund. One is governance, and I think that's what we're doing here today. Over the last 10 years, we've made it a point of duty to come out and give a status report, that this is what we're doing, these are the donations we have given, and this is how they've been spent. And I think that reward, that stewardship that we present on an annual basis, will encourage people who have a mistrust for how we manage collective funds or commonwealth, how they then perceive what exactly it is we're doing. And the second is the incidence of this giving. If the burden is significant on any group of people or one party, then it becomes difficult for them to continue, particularly in a time like this when there's significant stress in our market. I have some options. A lot of them need to be well thought through around the legal framework that will make them exist and function properly. But I think at this point, we're just sharing ideas and thoughts, and we will then sit down to find a way to articulate how best for these things to happen. The first I'll speak about is around development levies. We're a bank that operates across all 36 states as well as the federal capital. In several states of the Federation today, we're being asked to pay development levies for our staff. So on the head count that you have operating in your bank or in our institution, for instance, you're asked to pay anywhere between 1,000 and 2,000 naira per staff. Now, the incidence is not heavy, but what it does is that it's no longer how I feel, and it's no longer voluntary in that sense. I have an obligation to make that contribution. And we're doing it today in several states. Lagos State happens to be one of the few states that hasn't started that. So I think that's one great way to raise financing towards something that is laudable and everyone has a benefit that accrues to them from it. The second is around insurance. I think there's a way we can tie the insurance that is being provided today for car, physical assets, car, homes, as well as personal insurance. And the reason, the incidence for this kind of giving doesn't have to be anything significant. So I'm going to insure a car for 100,000 naira. And then you're being asked to pay 101,000 as against 100,000. It's quite insignificant, but when we add the multitudes of cars, I think in 2015, there were 300,000 cars that were registered in Lagos. Now, from the insurance that those cars, from those cars, if we only took 1,000 naira from each of the registration, this is not even talking about the renewals that happen every year. I think there's an opportunity there, and the incidence as well would not be significant. I'm being reminded that I have 1 minute, so I will run through the last two. And of course, we've been doing a lot of donations and gifts, and that's how we funded the fund till today. But I think what we failed to do is that the pitch that we make to the market is a lot of telling. So we're telling you what we've done, this is what we've done with the money, we've not done a lot of selling. And I think that's something we can alter in terms of letting people understand how this impacts them directly. So this is not something for a group of people and they benefit from it. It's about how does this impact the life of the simple trader in the market, the student in school, the worker who drives from Ikorodu to VI each morning to go to work. How does it impact you? I think the selling from that perspective is something I think we can do a lot on. The last thing I'll talk about is for the trust fund to float a security bond. It's not new. It's something that's happened in several other markets. The challenge will be that, so where's the revenue that guarantees these bonds? So if we take the first four things that I've said, those are revenue streams that can accrue to the state government or the trust fund on an annual basis, and against those cash flows, they can actually float a bond that will be securitized by the flows that they are going to be getting on an annual basis. That creates a bit of structure, so we're not going cap in hand each time we have a need. We're thinking 5 years ahead. We float a long-tenured bond, and I'm sure you find that the bond will be well subscribed, because not only does it solve a problem, but from the perspective of the investor, he also gets a return while solving a security problem that also affects him directly. I'd like to stop here. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was